Mm. Asapel. Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amoga Vairocana Maha Mudra Mani Padma Chavala Pravartaya
If you're new, please follow along with us. Breathing in as the body opens, breathing out as the body fills. Please stand. Prepare for our chanting the first of the 3 refuges in Sino-Korean according to our tradition, and then we'll say them in English. Shim Kwimyane Shivang Samse Chemang Chale Sanju Ilche Shim Kwimyane Shivang Samse Chemang Chale Sanju Ilche Shim Kwimyane Shivang Samse Chemang Chale Sanju Ilche And in English, please repeat after me. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha
And resolve with all beings,
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
I go for refuge to the Dharma
and resolve with all beings
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings
I will penetrate the teachings
and
uncover.
and penetrate oceans. No, let me see. Will you do it, please, Mom?
Mhm. And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom. I go for refuge to the Sangha
I go for refuge to the Sangha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please be seated for another shorter period of meditation, about 5 minutes. Please stand and come around your screen so we can see each other, or you can see me nose to nose. First Maum is here with a reading from the Dhammapada in the chapter called The Fool. Please bring your hands palm to palm in Hapchang of sincere heart as you listen deeply to these few lines.
For months, the fool may fast, eating from the tip of a grass blade. Still, they are not worth a penny beside the master whose food is the way. Fresh milk takes time to sour, so a fool's mischief takes time to catch up with them. Like the embers of a fire, it smolders within them.
Six lily pads, red, rising in our pond this morning. Yellow and pink flowers in the rain garden around. Here in our little meditation hall, 4 of us, keeping distance, and candles burning, emitting light. And always the question comes, what is this cultivation of a heart of enlightenment? What is it? What is it that keeps us going on like this? Well, good morning, everyone, and from wherever you are this morning. It's been a pleasure to hear from some of you in this past week in all the various ways, by small notes and telephone calls and computer communication. Yeah. I'm often in the process of creating this time together on Sunday mornings. And our Dharma teacher, Hayun, who's here this morning, as well as actually Maum, you've seen her, and Tara, Robert Hughes, is kindly doing the camera work this morning with his gray and white mask on. But Hayun a couple of times lately spoke about how meaningful a story of one of our ancestors, Kyonghyo, has been to her. And so it gave me an idea to tell it and also do a segue, is that the word, from it to a topic of really cultivation of the heart, broken heart. Yeah. So let me get my notes. So Kyonghyo was born in 1849 and he died in 1912. And he is given credit for really bringing Buddhism out of the doghouse. That's what Venerable Samusunam always says, that the Choson period in Korean history was a time when Buddhism was not looked upon with favor, but rather Confucianism. And near the end of the 300-year period before 1900, the king who was reigning then began to be a more supportive of Buddhism. And Buddhism had been lasting tenaciously in the mountain monasteries. Then along came Kyonghyo, who was to really help it flourish after that. And I like to tell his story because in some sense it's everyone's story. As much as we can relate, it's our story. So when he was 9 years old, he lost his father, and his mother, with no means to support them, took them to a temple where they were taken in. And Kyonghyo was initiated as a monk by Master Kei-hyo. And his mother, like many women of those times, was in the background and kind of the backbone of keeping the monastery going. Well, her 14-year-old son was flourishing as a novice monk. And when he was 14, he had the opportunity to begin studying with a Confucian scholar. And he really learned quickly. He was bright. And so during this time of study with the Confucian scholar, his teacher, Master Kei-hyo, gave up his robe and went to live a secular life in Seoul. And so Kyonghyo moved to another temple where he could work with Zen master and learn more about Buddhism. So he did that, and he was quick to learn. So not only had he learned a lot about Confucianism, he learned about Buddhism and then Taoism. And when he was 23 years old, he was assigned to be the sutra master at the monastery, which is a very prestigious position. And so he started out, and he was charismatic, and he was well versed in the sutras broadly. And so he became very popular, and many people came to hear his teachings. And this was when he was 23. When he was 30, he decided that he should go and pay his respects to his original teacher who had traveled to Seoul. And so he set off, having left things at the monastery in other folks' hands. And on the route, he came to a little village, and there was no one around. And he wondered what was going on. He knocked on doors, no answer. And so he decided he'd just open the door, maybe see what was going on inside. And he discovered corpses just lying and rotting on the floor. And he was horrified. He went from house to house like this. And then he found a sign that said, "Danger, cholera. If you value your life, go away." This struck him like a hammer. So he had initially horrified, but then it kind of got right to his heart. He said, I am supposed to be a great sutra master. I already understand all the Buddhist teachings. Why am I so afraid? He decided then and there, rather than continuing to Seoul to see his old teacher, to return to his monastery. And he called a gathering of all of his students. And he said, I have decided that it's the most important thing for me to understand my true self. And I will not think of doing any teaching until I do that. So he sent them all away. And he locked himself in a small room with one of his students to attend on him. And the student would regularly bring him food, put at the door, take away the food, take away whatever he needed to take away. And in this room, Kyung-hyo decided to work on this koan, this little question that one cannot answer with the rational mind. So he picked it up in a book, and it goes like this. Before the donkey leaves, the horse has already arrived. What does this mean? So he vowed that he would not leave the room until he could see the answer to this clearly. So what is this? Before the donkey leaves, the horse has already arrived. What does this mean? So he vowed constant practice day and night. And so I vow never to leave this room until I see clearly. He did meditation sitting. He did meditation lying down. He did not sleep, it said. So then 3 months passed, and his student, who had been bringing him the meals, went to a nearby town and happened to run into Mr. Lee, who was a supporter of the temple. And Mr. Lee asked him, how's your master doing these days? And his student said, Master Kyung-hyo has a great vow. He is doing hard training. He only eats, sits, and lies down, always practicing. Mr. Lee responded, if he just sits, eats, and lies down and practices all the time, he will be reborn as a cow. And the student said, what? My master is wonderful. I'm sure his practice is going to be very deep, and he'll at least go to heaven. And Mr. Lee reprimanded the young man. He said, that's not the way you should answer me. And so the student immediately was humbled a little. He said, okay, well, how should I? And so Mr. Lee said, I would have said, if I were you, if my teacher is reborn as a cow, he will be a cow with no nostrils. That's how you should have answered. But the student said, what? He just didn't have any understanding of what to be born as a cow with no nostrils. And so Mr. Lee said, well, you go talk to your master about this. And so the student picked up his belongings and returned to the monastery and went straight to Master Kyung-hyo's little room, knocked on the door, and the master opened, and he said to him, I'm really puzzled. I had a meeting with our good patron and practitioner, Mr. Lee, in town, and he said, your master is going to be reborn as a cow with no nostrils. And I didn't understand what that meant. And Kyung-hyo said, a cow with no nostrils, wonderful. And he began to dance all around, very happy. And of course, the student was still greatly puzzled. And so at that time, Master Kyung-hyo wrote a poem. And he went to his teacher, his Buddhism Zen teacher, who he had come to study with after his original teacher went to Seoul. And this teacher confirmed his awakening. And then Kyung-hyo, and it was apparently October 15th, 1879, he wrote this poem. I heard about the cow with no nostrils, and suddenly the whole universe is my home. Yongam Mountain lies flat under the road. A farmer at the end of his work is singing. And at that point, apparently he became the 75th patriarch in our lineage. And if those of you who are out there listening this morning, on the wall at the Chicago Temple, if you're from the Chicago Temple or been there, there's a whole list of masters in our lineage. And Master Kyung-hyo is the second one to the right, I believe. He's quite a figure. So I began to myself think, what is this being reborn as a cow with no nostrils? You know? And so I got a couple of meanings from one is that I found out that in Asia, cows are used in the fields to plow, to carry, to pull carts. And they always have rings through their nostrils so that they can be led around. They can be pulled this way and pulled that way, and they have to respond. So I figured out, well, then a cow with no nostrils cannot be led around like that, cannot be subject to the vicissitudes of habitual patterns of this and that on the inside and the outside. So what great freedom that the world indeed is home, the whole world. So when I figured that out, because it was a puzzle to me, I did a little dancing myself and whoa, wow, I like to be reborn as a cow. In fact, I'd like to get rid of my nostrils now, I guess. So that's one, I think, really interesting teaching that comes out in this little story about Kyung-hyo. And the other one, I think, is that he was intent, on going to Seoul to visit his old teacher. But then he had that experience, perhaps not so unlike the experience we're having right now with the pandemic. And he realized that he really didn't clearly know the matter of birth and death. And so he turned around and went back and really applied himself to his koan, his wadu, but also in meditation practice, he developed a heart mind, and that's the full meaning of the word mind, a heart mind, so that when he heard about the cow with no nostrils, his heart, his mind broke open so he could really see clearly. Yeah. So we also have that opportunity. And somehow I'd like to kind of share some other things with you now, is that, how much is our heart mind getting broken open during this time? It feels like, well, a lot of people have been dying in this country, over 87,000. And from what I hear, there'll be a lot more trouble in terms of mental illness. So we're in a pretty challenging situation. So yesterday, earlier this week, we got word from Sonhar, a priest in Toronto, that one of our longtime members, Pata Susan Wosek, had been found dead in a river. She had gone missing on March 23rd and had not been able to be found. And she had moved out of Toronto to a smaller place by herself in the country. And then the pandemic came, and there she was, alone, with no kind of connections. It had been necessary for her to sell her house in Toronto so that she could have some money, pay off her bills, many bills that had added up. And so it was determined that she had probably taken her own life. And that really hit me like One Hill was hit by the cholera situation in the village. Pata and I would mostly see each other on special occasions and at the year-end service in Toronto. But somehow we were kind of soul sisters. We spoke so closely with each other. She seemed to read my eyes. I seemed to read hers. She was an artist and a poet. And she wrote me many of Venerable Samu Sunam. His picture, he's okay in New York. His picture is on the altar so that we can remember and appreciate him. But she wrote by hand all of the poems that he had written. And she made a book, a beautiful book, and gave it to me. And we always just touched base. There was kind of a really special relationship that we had, even though we hardly saw each other. And maybe you have someone like that in your life. When you get together, wow, it's just a kind of like magic. And Pata was like that. So it was terrible to hear that she had taken her life, had been found in the cold river, and had been alone in a cabin during the coronavirus time. So I have immediately began myself to chant the Great Compassion Dharani and to do the Bardo prayer for her. And it would be when I was out walking this morning, which I always do before the service, she came to my mind again, and I just thought that I would talk about her, because my whole mind, heart feel broken as a result of her death. It's really a great loss. Yeah. So when I was out walking around, it just came, singing to her, wherever her essence is right now. And I seem to do that just in a moment, in a little moment of suchness. Pada comes up. So I was thinking that there's 87,000 people in this country and so many more around the world. And I am sure that most of them have people like me, like us, who really care about them and are feeling so bereft because with this coronavirus, we cannot be with them in their last days. It's really heartbreaking. I was talking with Kusa, our Dharma teacher in Colorado Springs yesterday. And we had been in a meeting earlier in the morning, and he had talked about mourning and dying. And I said to him, I phoned him in the afternoon, Kusa, please tell me about this mourning that you feel is so missing on our part. And because I felt it a little bit, but I'm not sure if we are really addressing it. So I took some notes. He said, mourning is the skillful way of going forward, that it's important to stop and to do something of a mourning ritual when someone dies, someone so ill. And he said that it's a part of going forward. Well, and it's so true, because sometimes for us who are still alive, we feel helpless. What could we do for that person now? What can we do for ourselves? And to have some little ritual of mourning. And then he said, it's our willingness to engage the hurt that's really important. These days, there's so much going on that we could disengage or try to, but he said it's important that we engage the hurt. It's tapping into the condition of importance within all of us called heartbreak. Usually we do not deepen in the spiritual path if we don't open our hearts or let them be broken open. I felt it really around Pata myself. Yeah. It's a time, mourning is a time to pause, said Kusa, to reflect. Kind of like Kyung Ho did when he saw that cholera. He was going to go to the city. He was pretty famous. He was a pretty good practitioner. He turned around and dedicated himself to strong practice instead. So we're in a kind of pause period. And so an important part of this may be to mourn. And then also what about the direction of our lives? Should there be some changes? Perhaps not as extreme as going in a place and not coming out for 3 months and taking up a koan. But we can't help but take up a koan because this whole situation is that. What can I do? And then I just was thinking, we do a morning service. And I mentioned it last week in the service here. Every week on Thursday morning, it's a Bardo prayer, and it's a kind of morning prayer that I would like to read aloud for you, for us, for the great we, right now. So we can have a way to hold all these folks who have died. Our kin in the greatest sense of the word, as they are passing from this world to the next. So I'm going to read this aloud, but just before, let's take a moment in our mind's eyes and also to open our heart to all of the people, and not only those people who have been the victims of the coronavirus, but also the victims who are helping. And it's a very, very stressful kind of way to help. So can we visualize those in our mind eye? Around the country, around the world. Pausing, feeling, embracing. And breathing viscerally, that means you can feel breathing. As I read aloud this Bardo prayer. O compassionate ones, abiding in all directions, endowed with all-knowing wisdom and loving compassion, giving protection and guidance to all sentient beings, we invoke your presence and ask that you hear our prayer. O compassionate ones, fellow beings are passing from this world to the next. They have entered the great mystery of death and rebirth. O compassionate ones, give guidance to our fellow beings who are now alone with the joys and sorrows of their past life. Guide them to see beyond their blindness and to let go of attachments so that they may move freely through the passage between lives. May the power of unconditional forgiveness embrace them. May they be clear and unafraid amid the karmic winds that may surround them. May they know all sounds as their own sound. May they know all lights as their own light. May they know all pain and pleasure to be transient. O compassionate ones, help their hearts to be open, and may the thought of loving kindness guide them to choose a new life that will benefit themselves and others. May the sound of this prayer emanate in all directions. May these thoughts become their thoughts. May all doubts dissolve. May the power of our love be strong and clear. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, compassionate ones, manifest now your ancient vows. May all beings awaken to the unborn and undying Buddha mind, the source and substance of all there is. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhi swaha. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhi swaha. Please all join in. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhi swaha. The other song, which I often sing spontaneously. Actually, I make up songs spontaneously quite a bit too, but this is one that most of us know that I think is also appropriate to sing for all of these folks who are passing from this life to the next. So please join in if you know it, and if you like the words, we can send them. No coming, no going, no after, no before. I hold you close to me. I release you to be so free. Because I am in you, and you are in me. Because I am in you, and you are in me. Another time, and please try to join in. No coming, no going, no after, no before. I hold you close to me. I release you to be so free. Because I am in you, and you are in me. Because I am in you, and you are in me. Finally, never finally though, it's always all in process. I have been very inspired by so many of you among us who have really put in your wholehearted attention and care into your lives at this time of sheltering in and pandemic, where problems have come up and you've just really paused to find the truth and the Dharma and the skillful means to take next steps. So I wish that skillful means for all of you to pause, of course, to mourn. And using this prayer and this song can be part of it for you, and you can make some up. To pause, but then to go on with a full broken-hearted life. That's how we can go on if we allow our hearts to really open. And there's a beautiful little few words that Venerable Samusunam created many years ago. It goes, and it's on the premise that all of us are Buddhists. We don't always act like that, but we have the capacity. Yeah. That has something to do with Kyung-hyo's koan. The horse is already there. We already have Buddha nature. So this is what Sunam said, always opening Buddha's mind, always opening Buddha's heart, always opening Buddha's hands. Please remember, and I hope you're well and safe. Have a little time for dancing once in a while. And at least making up songs as you walk around. Okay, let me know. So here's some Maung with some announcements now. And then we'll have some other opportunities to follow up online. She'll tell you about that.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you for that beautiful Dharma talk. We invite you to join our tea time right after service. This is hosted online with Tongsan and with Kusa, our Dharma guardians, and I'm our Dharma teachers. And it begins at 11:30. So the link to that meeting is posted on our Facebook page and also in the e-bulletin, so please join in. If you are a member of Recovery Dharma, that meeting begins at noon today. Chicago for some time has been teaching the meditation class online during this pandemic. And so here in Ann Arbor, we're going to give that a go, beginning this Thursday evening from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. The class meets for 5 sessions. If you are interested in this introductory meditation experience of learning about postures, chanting, mindfulness practices, breathing, all the things that we do here at the temple, please contact us and we will get you on the link for that class that is coming up.
Yep, and you can figure out pardon me for interrupting, but it's 6:30 to 8:30. But if you're on the other side of the world, you'll just have to calculate because everybody's welcome at that time. So please give a call or email and let us know. We're very interested to see who's interested. Yeah. Sorry, Mom. You can
No.
please go back to Mom.
Oh, thank you. Lastly, we want to thank you for your continued donations to the temple. We're so very grateful for your generosity. Please keep your notes and emails and phone calls coming. Means a lot to us, as hopefully a lot to you, because it keeps us all connected and just holding the Sangha in a very precious way. So go off now and enjoy your day. Be well.
Thank you for reminding me of that story.